Hi there, YouTube. Yes, we've actually started. We've been doing Stratosphere Lounge forever on. Well, we started on some other Ustream, I think, but we've been doing it on Twitch for a long time now. And so we run kind of a walk-in over there with music. So I generally switch on the YouTube stream just as we start our kind of our theme song, which is "I Know a Place" by Petula Clark over on Twitch. So let's bring our Twitch friends in here, and we'll get this ball rolling here. Hi everybody, welcome to the Stratosphere Lounge. I'm your host, Bill Whittle, and today is May 30th, 2024, a date that will live in infamy. I'm just tempted to just refer to the Democratic Party from now on as the Confederates. I was really just looking at their history as objectively as I possibly could, without genuinely trying to look at it. And I just don't know what to say. This is the day that just a couple hours ago, the jury in New York came back with, 393 felony convictions or whatever for the former and future president of the United States. So our office manager, Shelley, was really, I heard, oh no, and she's really took it pretty hard. My attitude is, okay, I'll just vote for him in jail if I have to. And I'm just really honestly looking at this, and I just say to myself, is there anything that these people not only won't do, but haven't done? The Confederacy was the Democratic Party leaving the Union. The Democratic Party was the party that was voting for slavery in the 1864 election. The Democratic candidate, George McClellan, who had been given the finest army on the face of the earth and done nothing with it, until finally fired by Lincoln, at which point he decided, I'm going to get even with him. Their platform in 1864 was, let's just say the whole thing was just a giant do-over mistake, and come on back to the Union and bring your slaves with you. And it was the Democrats that did the Jim Crow laws. It was the Democrats that were the Ku Klux Klan. It was the Democrats that turned the fire hoses on those black kids trying to go to school in the South. Bull Connor was a Democrat. George Wallace was a Democrat. They're all Democrats. I look at the destruction of civil liberties done by Woodrow Wilson and the entire tax code, income tax. That was a Democratic progressive invention. And so was the abolition movement, and so was the Vietnam War, and Lyndon Johnson's fighting the Democrat War, and how he fought the Vietnam War, and Jimmy Carter's malaise, and it never ends. And then you get the Clintons, and this sort of normalization of illegality and cheating and sleaziness, and then along comes Barack Obama, spent 1,000 Sundays in Reverend Wright's church, and never heard a single thing about, the kind of stuff he was preaching. We all remember Reverend Wright, don't we? And now you've got this senile, mean-spirited old man who doesn't know what day of the week it is, and he's crowing about how no one is above the law, when, in point of fact, the only people I've seen legitimate evidence against were Hillary Clinton and Hunter Biden and Joe Biden. So here we are. But the thing about the Democrats that I've noticed is that they will destroy anything if it's not working for them. Remember the nuclear option, which was the gentleman's agreement that had to do with the number of votes needed. It was a civility agreement. It was something designed to make the wheels of government flow a little more smoothly. And when Harry Reid needed a vote, he broke this 100-some-year-old convention, and he just broke it. Now it's broken. And everything that they do, they break it. If they can't get it to work, then they break it, and they have no regard for the consequences. The fact that these I'm really just, I'm not speechless about the verdict. I'm just speechless that we actually have, uh, that we talk about this party as if it were like a political party. It's a crime syndicate, and it always has been. And I never, and I guess I keep wanting, like every other decent person, keep wanting to give them the benefit of the doubt and just say, well, the people have different opinion about things, but their opinion about things is just cheat, cheat. Whatever is necessary, by whatever means necessary. Power, 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 power. So I'd been asked to do President Johnson for the PragerU series on the presidency, and here's the thing, you talk to young people about all these things I just mentioned, or those of them who are aware of the fact that it was Democrats. Ask most young Gen Zers whether Abraham Lincoln was a Republican or a Democrat. They'll all swear he was a Democrat, and all of this stuff about them is news to them. But when you talk to progressives who are saying, well, yes, it's true, the Democrats used to be all of those horrible things, but then we switched sides. That's when the party switched sides in the 1960s. Parties didn't switch sides. That's insane. We're winning 72-0. We're going to go in at halftime, change jerseys. That's just plain ridiculous. Parties didn't switch sides. The Democrats switched strategy. And Lyndon Johnson was the guy who switched strategy. He knew that the Democrats were never going to win again, and that after almost 2 centuries of keeping black people down, he decided, well, we can still keep them down. We're just going to make them dependent on us. So he starts all of these programs for social programs and welfare state and all of this stuff. And he said, I'm going to have those N-words voting Democrat for the next 200 years. And he did. And that's what happened. At least that's what happened for the last, 50 of them. So give people just enough to starve on, deprive them of all hope, make their neighborhoods into murder pits and crime-ridden, rat-infested ghettos, and continue to plant these everlasting seeds of resentment, inferiority, and all the rest of it, and just keep doing that so long as you can continue to stay in power. And I. Just flew into my head about my view of the Democrats is that the way they look about this country, the way they feel about the country, it reminds me very much, and the way I think Republicans tend to look at the country, reminds me very much of that parable of Saul, of King Saul, where these 2 women claim this baby, and Saul, the wise king, basically says, well, since you both claim the baby, get me a sword. I'll cut the baby in half, and then each of you can have half. And one woman says, no, don't, for God's sakes, don't do that. She can have the baby. And Saul realizes that Solomon, thank you, Solomon, so sorry about that. Solomon, sorry. Solomon, here it comes. Solomon. And Solomon says, this woman is the mother, because the real mother would sacrifice ownership of the child to save its life. But the person claiming to be the mother is perfectly happy having the baby divided in half. And that's how I look at this thing. They're just perfectly happy to destroy it if they had to. And I'm waiting for somebody to provide some evidence that that's just not the case. I don't know what else to say about this, other than the fact that we'd better wake up as to what we're dealing with. When Trump went to Washington in 2016, he went there to drain the swamp, and I don't want him to drain the swamp now. I want him to burn it down. I want him to burn it to the ground. I want that whole federal government structure burned down. And while they're there with their flamethrowers, spare the monuments, they're beautiful, and certainly spare the National Archives building. And when there's nothing but flaming wreckage out there, then go into that building and with a very dim little light, because it's fading fast, it's kind of an allegory, but the letters are still there. And the letters don't have to be on parchment. Letters are eternal and immortal. Just go back to the Constitution, read it line by line out loud in front of the Congress, one line at a time, and then discuss what we need to do to rebuild this government and put it back in the box it came in. I saw testimony 5-6 days ago now, I guess, from the director of the of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, where they had a man who they claim was illegally selling weapons without a license or something like this, and he was asked, what is the penalty for that, if indeed he was guilty, and they said, well, it would depend on the circumstances, either 5 or 10 years in prison. So ATF sent 10 cars at 3 o'clock in the morning, and they did a no-knock raid, and the last thing you see are the federal agents coming up to the door and putting tape over the doorbell camera, putting tape over it so nobody could see it. None of them wearing body cams, none of the St. Louis police with them wearing body cams. This guy, they bashed down the door. This guy wakes up in the middle of the night, 3 o'clock in the morning, hears his front door being bashed open, grabs his weapon to defend his home, and they shoot him dead. Okay. And when Congress exercising its oversight role, its constitutional oversight role, Congress has a place in the Constitution. There's nothing about the ATF in the Constitution. So when the Congressional Oversight Committee is grilling the head of the Alcohol and Tobacco and Firearms Department about what happened and why weren't you wearing body cams and what is it you're trying to hide, this 80-watt brain genius said the same kind of thing that they always say. Said, well, I can't talk about an ongoing case, Senator. I'm not allowed to discuss legal proceedings that are currently in motion. And I thought, that's convenient. That's really convenient. That way you can just go around murder everybody, and as long as the investigation is constantly ongoing, you don't have to answer any questions. This business of not, we don't have to answer congressional oversight because the investigation is ongoing, is absolutely backwards. It's like, no, you don't understand. This congressional hearing is the investigation. This is the investigation. This is the only one that matters. What you're doing internally is irrelevant. This is the investigation. You will answer us now. And honestly, no wonder they want this guy in jail. Burn it down. And I mean burn it down, and then just go back to the Constitution and sit there and figure out what do we need based on the wisdom of our founding fathers. What do we need here in Washington? What do we need? Do we need a Department of Education? We do not. All the Department of Education does is to enforce new math and woke ideology and make sure that every single kid in the country gets the same indoctrination. You look at the budget funding for the Department of Education and educational test scores, and they are directly inversely correlated. Goodbye, Department of Education. Goodbye. Goodbye, Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. Goodbye, Department of Energy. Goodbye to, gosh, I don't even know where to start. But most of them. Some of them you need something that looks like the CIA. You need something that looks like the FBI. I think both of them are, certainly the FBI is just irretrievably tarnished. Just abolish it and then figure out how to get something that looks like that, that's much smaller. And I don't think they need their own building even. I think they'd be perfectly fine working out of regional offices and getting together in some regular office building somewhere in Washington, and then you guys can have your conversation there. Get rid of the Pentagon. The Pentagon needs to go. We need a Department of Defense, and I'm strong on defense. But if the generals need to have a meeting, they can meet at one of the various bases that we have across the country. This walled-in priesthood is what makes these weapon systems cost so much. And even that would be tolerable if it turned out that they weren't willing to do whatever they had to in order to protect their promotions and their future as defense contractors. I had a moment of genuine heartbreak when I first read the book Boyd, and the story of Pierre Spray and the Bradley came out, where the Bradley fighting vehicle, which turned into a fine weapon system, although you wouldn't know it when it got started, when the Bradley was first presented, its performance was so poor and so deadly that the officers of the United States military, generals and colonels, officers who'd sworn an oath to defend the Constitution of the United States, did everything in their power to cover up how bad it was, fully aware of the fact that that meant that our soldiers were going to die. And to give you an idea of the Bradley, just as one example here, first version of the Bradley, one of the many defects of the vehicle was that if it got hit by an incoming round, it would do something called spalling, where all of the inside metal would come loose and just form red-hot, razor-sharp shrapnel. And so when they decided to test the Bradley against RPG, rocket-propelled grenade, they ended up using, I think it was Czechoslovakian RPGs, which were something like 40% as strong as the Russian RPGs. They were manufactured under license for the Warsaw Pact, but they were noticeably underpowered and notoriously weak. So they shot those at it because it had to pass an RPG test. And then when they did another test on the Bradley to see if it would, how well it did against explosions, they did the test. They set up the test the way it was supposed to be set up, but they took the liberty of filling the fuel tanks in the Bradley with water for that test. And when you fill up the fuel tanks of an armored fighting vehicle with water, in order to pass a test that the vehicle would not pass otherwise, and you are willing to put American soldiers in that defective vehicle that you used water on for the test, but when filled with gasoline or diesel would kill everybody inside, then you not only are not entitled to wear the uniform, you need to be hanged for treason, because you are, and this actually happened. I'm not making this up. Every single one of those people needed to be hanged because they were willing to murder American servicemen and kill them in order to protect their promotions, their rank, and their reputation, their perks, and their future as defense contractors of the people that made that original Bradley. The Bradley, because of people like Pierre Spray, turned into a really fine vehicle, but not because of the Pentagon, in spite of the Pentagon. And so the Pentagon can go too. It can just go. And I think you really just have to go down to, and when I say the level of majors, that'd be majors and naval captains, let's say, and below. The same basic metric should apply to the FBI and CIA. I think the whole thing is rotten from the top down, and I think you need to get rid of, just decapitate these law enforcement agencies. Not eliminate them, decapitate them. Get the people who are on the street, like the soldiers and sailors who actually do the war fighting, get them in positions of power and rotate them the hell out of there quickly, and also don't build them a fortress and a temple where they can stay immune to, the common soldier. I mean, it's just fundamental management. The people who the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff should be meeting with on a daily basis are not other four-star generals and admirals. They need to be talking every day to chief petty officers, and need to be talking to sergeants. That's who they need to be talking to every day. Every day. That's who they should be having meetings with. And those meetings should be held under circumstances where it's not only permissible for the person to speak their mind, but it's required. You're on your oath to tell the truth as you see it. Now, you don't. If it turns out that you're lying to protect, I'm speaking about to a CPO or something. If you are hiding things that we need to know about because you don't want to give us bad news, then you're in trouble. You tell us the truth, then congratulations, you get promoted. It's just, all of it's got to go. Any of these concentration of powers leads to tyranny, and it's got to go. P7 2017 over in YouTube says we've abandoned accountability. Accountability is the word. So Hillary Clinton does whatever she wants to. They murder Epstein in cold blood in front of our eyes. Not saying that he was somebody I wept over, but nevertheless, that's why we have due process. That's why we have law. Doesn't matter if I think he's a scumbag. Almost certainly was, but that's why he has to stand trial. And this simply murdered in front of the nation's eyes, and they just knew we'd do nothing about it. So we will see. The question is now, of course, what is going to be the fallout of this? I know that, speaking for myself, every time they do anything like this, and on a day like today especially, my support for Donald Trump goes from bright to incandescent to blinding. I no longer give a damn about any of his faults. I don't care about any of it. I'll vote for him in prison, and I'm at the point where I'll vote for anybody he tells me to. If it turns out for whatever reason he's barred from, or for whatever reason he's not actually in the election come November, then he says vote for this guy, then that's the guy I'm going to vote for. And I don't know. I don't see how Donald Trump lost a single vote as a result of this, but I think he might have won some. With that said, I was looking at the election voting odds. We've talked about this many times, as opposed to polls. For those of you that might be new, John Stossel set up a website where they look at what people are spending their actual money on, because you can bet on anything in this country, and you're not going to bet $10,000 on Biden winning an election if you actually think Trump's going to win the election, but you like Biden. So since he got skin in the game, it has a reliability now. Trump was significantly down earlier, and I bet he's down more now. Yeah, he's down almost 4% in the last day. So it's 49% for Trump and 40% for Biden. Biden's up 3. That's a 3 or 4 point jump, but I think those are people just saying, well, let's see what happens. I think when they find out that this is going to backfire like everything else, then I think those odds will turn around. I don't know. I don't know what we're going to do about the cheating that's going to happen. I don't know. I know this. Trump's position relative to Biden now versus what it was in 2020 is enormously better. In other words, it's a rematch of the 2020 election, unless, of course, with the near certainty that the Democrats will cheat again somehow before the election and replace Biden after the convention, so that there's no chance of actual democracy happening in the Democratic Party. But assuming that it went to the wire with the same boxing card, then Trump's position relative to Biden is much stronger now than it was in 2020. And I'm utterly convinced he won in 2020, and by a wide margin. This Dr. Robert Epstein pointed out that just the Google influence on search engines alone cost Trump 9 out of the 11 swing states, and he won 5, but he would have won 9 without that on the table. So my point is, if they run the cheating machine again, this time they're going to have to do more of it, and this time we're going to be paying attention. This time we're going to be there, and we're going to be taking receipts. So I don't know what happens if they simply declare that he's won when it's clear that if there's clear evidence, quantifiable evidence, because I think they're going to have to do a lot more cheating than they did last time. If they simply declare it again, if they simply stop counting it. But by the way, the balloon goes up if they stop counting. If it turns out that during the course of the night a state stops counting, that is your evidence that there's cheating going on. That's the evidence. Right there, that's the evidence. So yeah, this is kind of the kind of question I'm asking. That's Asapeni says, Bill, let's say we get the receipts. What can we do about it? I think the Supreme Court not taking that case was a enormously huge catastrophe. But I'm not making any excuses for that. But when you are talking about going to court, you have to have evidence. You have to have evidence that is admissible in court and which can be argued in court and that you get one with. What Dr. Epstein is doing is he's got millions of people involved with screen grabs and all the rest of it, and we need quantifiable evidence that can be presented to the Supreme Court in a way that we did not have in 2020, despite my overwhelming conviction that evidence existed. We all do have to admit it was all ad hoc. It was after the fact. It was, nobody was getting the receipts in real time. So we will see. Let me just take care of the super chat here from Lapco92. It says, I find myself thinking, elect Trump, build the wall, start lining these jackasses up against it, and damn them for making me do this. Especially that last sentence. But then I remember our side doesn't act that way. Keep our cool. Yes, that's damn them for making us do this. Really. I want all of these people in prison. If they're found guilty in a court of law. I'm very clear about this. I'm not saying round them up. I'm not saying throw them all in jail. I'm saying try them all. And if you can prove in a court of law, in front of a jury of their peers, if you can go that low, then if it turns out that you find them guilty, then put them in jail, give them the sentence that they deserve, and they can bear the consequences. And then this tomfoolery will stop for a while. It'll stop until we stop enforcing the law, and when we stop enforcing the law, imagine what's going to happen then. People are going to start breaking it again. But, okay. All right, so this is what they did. And they have, they have sowed the wind, and now they're going to reap the whirlwind. And I really think, the thing that really is the most disturbing about this, not that I was surprised, I wasn't surprised, and not that I'm not sick about it, obviously I'm sick about it and all of this. It's the shame of it, It's the shame of it. I can't escape the fact that it's happened. The shame of it is it's irreversible. You can't undo it. You can rectify the situation, but you can't undo the fact that the Democratic Party weaponized the legal system to indict and convict a clearly innocent former president of the United States. Sven, sorry. That's a tough one. Swen Nasarima Will says, exactly, I'm embarrassed. That's the word I was looking for. I'm embarrassed. This is embarrassing to me. The country is embarrassed, and I just, you can't. It's just done. So okay, you want to impeach him? You want to impeach him twice? Fine. You want to have Harry Reid use the nuclear option? Fine. You want to you want to inter Japanese people on World War II? Fine. You want to start the Ku Klux Klan? Fine. You want to leave the Union when it turns out you may not be able to keep your slaves? Democrats? Fine. I would really like there to be a laboratory. Maybe someday computers will become sophisticated enough to be able to do some sort of relatively accurate modeling of history. It's just a possibility. I'm not saying I'm looking forward to it. I'm certainly not talking about predicting the future that way, but interesting to see if you could model history. I'd really like to know what the country would look like without the Democratic Party, honestly. And I'd be perfectly happy, willing to see what it looked like without the Republican Party as well. But this is kind of back to the arcade thing, There are people who play by the rules because they're competitors and they're built that way, and they have a sense of honor, and they have a sense of integrity, and they have a sense of fair play, because these are inhibitors on on predators, basically. Wolves have extremely complex social hierarchies, and when two wolves are fighting, when one wolf gives up and bares his neck, the other wolf doesn't tear his neck out. He just was looking for that surrender sign. That aggression is turned off like that. So some people are wired to obey the rules, and some people are wired to, I'm not even going to say they're wired to break them. They are not wired to have any rules. If it turns out they can break the rules and get an advantage, then they will. And that's how this tune goes, man. And we got one from Lapco 92. Side note: Have you noticed our politics have gotten worse and worse for every week you haven't watched 1, 2, 3 Connected? Who can say? I'm taking it with me. I'm going to Hawaii for 4 days. I had to push it back. I was going to go a couple days ago, but I just couldn't get the work done. So Natasha went ahead of me, and because there was no need to, cancel both those reservations. So she's there with a friend of hers, and they're having fun now, having a great time. And I'll be joining Natasha on Saturday morning. So I'll be back on Wednesday. So we're going to miss next Monday's show again. I was here for last Monday's show. I was just trying to catch up. So I had to push the vacation back a couple days. Excuse me 1 second while I turn down the air conditioner just a little bit here and get a little colder in here. Talk amongst yourselves. Just don't say anything, that wouldn't be willing to, have repeated in a court of law. So what a day. Congratulations, Democrats. Laugh while you can, monkey boys. Laugh while you can. You have no idea what's coming. This is the thing too, they these people are really actually quite stupid. They don't understand what's going on with this Trump thing. I don't know why. I mean, I do know why that they go ahead and do these kind of things, because they can't conceive of, they're so narcissistic, these Democrats, ultimately, and guys like Robert De Niro and all the rest of them, and they're so narcissistic that they cannot conceive of why somebody would be opposing them. It's impossible for them to believe that somebody would be opposed to them. So they have to do these mental gymnastics and basically say these Trump supporters are just so stupid and so deluded. They don't understand what a terrible guy he is. So we have to spend everything we can and lie if we have to, obviously, needless to say, that goes without saying. We'll lie, in order to get Trump supporters to realize that Trump's a bad guy. And when they realize he's a bad guy, then they won't support him anymore, and we can go about our business on robbing the country and doing whatever we want to, and flying down to our underage prostitute islands and all the rest of the things that we find so amusing. And so they seem to think, I'm wondering how you can see it. I mean, even leading up to the trial, you could see these people on NBC, on MSNBC and CNN. Well, if Donald Trump is convicted, then I'm sure his supporters will. I'm sure that'll really. I've heard him say essentially that's going to shock his supporters. Like, no, we're not even shocked that he's on trial. We got over being shocked a long time ago. We were shocked 4 or 5 years ago. That's when we were shocked. I don't care. And what he said, and damn them for making you do this. I mean, damn them for getting us to the point when it's like, I actually don't care. I don't think Trump is guilty of anything. But I'm at the point now where even if he was, I don't care. That's where they've gotten us, Spaceman is a cool name. Spaceman, I have a question. How would you encourage people who want to walk away and not vote anymore, given the level of Marxism that has taken root in our country? There's only... That's a great question. So let me just talk about that. If you're one of those people that are saying, well, the system is rigged, or it's corrupt, or I'm not voting, or I don't like this, or rhinos, or devil take all of them, whatever, okay? Just get out of the politics, for example, to answer your question here best I can, Spaceman. Just get out of the politics completely. Put politics on the table. Forget about politics, especially forget about voting for a minute. And ask yourself a question. Do you believe in right or wrong? Do you believe that there's such a thing as right and such a thing as wrong? Do you believe in right and wrong? It's another step to ask, do you believe in good and evil? And there's another step above that to say, do you believe in existential good and evil, as in metaphysical good and evil? But first of all, just ask yourself if you believe in right and wrong. If you don't see any difference between right and wrong, then I can't help you and nobody can. And somebody's saying the Constitution is dead, the Republic's gone, country's over, we lost the country. Okay, I understand the sentiment. I know when I get really upset about things, I tend to go down that road too, and but just calmly now, okay? Just sit down calmly and rationally, right? We have that much of a conceit left that we're reasonable people. So put aside the politics, put aside the destruction, put aside all that stuff. Just ask yourself, do you believe that there's a difference between right and wrong? I believe there's a difference between right and wrong. I believe that murdering or raping somebody or stealing their stuff is wrong. I believe it's an absolute wrong. I don't think it's a moral equation. I don't think there's 80% wrong about murder and 20% right. I don't believe in any of that stuff. I believe it's objectively wrong. I believe it's evil in the mundane sense of the real world, and I'm more and more convinced that it's metaphysically evil. So if you believe in right and wrong, good and bad, good and evil, and if you believe these things exist in the world, then you have to ask yourself, what is your position in this battle between good and evil going to be? Are you going to be on the side of evil, or are you going to be on the side of good, or are you don't care enough to not take any side at all? Because the thing about evil is that evil is eternal and pernicious. It never goes away. Rust never sleeps, and the grass never stops growing. Evil and corruption and tyranny have entropy on their side. It's easier for a patch of ground to go to weed than it is for the patch of ground to grow roses. They have entropy on their side. And if you're the kind of person that says, well, I believe in good and evil, but I don't care enough to enter the fight, then whether you say you're picked a team or not, you have picked a team. One of the truest things ever said, and really is a foundational truth, is that all that evil needs to succeed is that good men do nothing. And you're one of those people doing nothing. So let me put it to you this way. It is possible that the electoral system in the United States is irretrievably corrupt. I'm willing to accept that is a possibility. But we won't know that unless everybody gets out and votes. We won't know how whether the system is retrievable or not until everybody gets out and votes. If everybody gets out and votes and we win, then your evidence is that the system is not irretrievably lost. If everybody gets out and votes and we lose, then you also have evidence that the system is in fact in need of musket level overhaul. But if nobody goes out and votes, in other words, if you say that the system is corrupt, so I'm not voting, so you don't vote, so you lose the election, did we lose the election because the system was corrupt, or did we lose the election because you didn't vote? We have to force them to claim that in order that Joe Biden wins in 2024, 130% of the registered population of virtually every county came out to vote for Joe Biden. That's the kind of level of evidence that the Supreme Court is going to need. Because overturning the results of an election is enormous. And I thought that evidence existed in 2020, but that ship has sailed. So when this election comes up, I've said before many times, you don't get two sneak attacks in a war. You get one sneak attack. The Al-Qaeda got one sneak attack. We spent the rest of the 20 years making sure they didn't hijack any more airliners. And so that's why they confiscated my large tube of toothpaste when I flew last time, because it was somewhat bigger. I had a tube of toothpaste this big, and the tube of toothpaste I'm allowed to have is this big. That's still with us. That hasn't gone away. Okay, but neither have they brought any buildings down either. So, I'm just going to, I don't think that the TSA is responsible for that. They did a test many years ago now, 7-8 years ago now, where they tried to find out what percentage of intentionally smuggled in arms and bombs TSA caught, and they caught 5%. But they got one sneak attack. The Japanese got one sneak attack. and then you're looking out for that. So that doesn't mean they're not going to do it, but if they do it, it's going to come from a different direction. I just think we're going to be there. Let's put it this way. That's an interesting comment here. Chuck says, Boomer, you've never done this before. You haven't been here before. Stop pretending you know what's going on. Says who? A 21-year-old telling me I've never been here before, never done this before? Doesn't that seem... I'm not going to ask you to have any sense of logic, because we pretty much know that ship has sailed for most of you guys. But are you actually saying that boomers can't tell you what's been going on because we've never been here before, when in point of fact, that's kind of the entire point about being a boomer, is that we have been here? Is that what you're trying to say there, Chunks? I'm just so curious. It's always funny when people just make statements that just kind of show that they're not really all there. So yeah, I'll just keep an eye on that. Chunks, you've never done this before. You haven't been here before. Stop pretending like you know what's going on. You'd better be a member of the Greatest Generation, pal, because if you are, I'll listen to you. That's the only way I'm gonna see any logic in that. 39 was in the Marines. 1939, so you're older than me. Well, then you've got a good case there. Let me just back up a little bit. Hey, if you were born in 1939 and were in the Marines, then you have got authority that I did not think you had. So if that's the case, then you have my undivided attention. What haven't I done before, and what have I pretending to know about? Oh, you're guessing he's 39 years old. I see. Okay, well, 39 years old is less. But even if you're 39 years old, you're in the Marine Corps. That has my respect, sir. You have my respect for being a Marine. Doesn't mean you're automatically right, but it does mean you have my sincere respect. I'd like to know what I'm wrong about. When people say, hey, you're wrong about something, I'm generally eager to find out why. I know that's a higher hill to climb. It's much easier to just say you're wrong about something than it is to tell me why I'm wrong about something, but I'm listening. So you have my, if you're a retired Marine, no, sorry, 39 years old. Okay, well, if you're 39 years old and a retired Marine, then you have my undivided attention, sir. You've earned it. By being in the Marine Corps, you've got my undivided attention, and I am now curious to know where I'm wrong. I thought you were simply saying you boomers are wrong about everything, and now I'm leaving now. I'm genuinely interested. So he said, no, I'm sorry, I'm 39 years old. But he didn't claim he was born in 1939. That was the assumption I made. No. We're not going to insult this guy. We're not going to insult a Marine. No. We're not doing that. That kind of treatment we reserve for social justice warriors, not real warriors. So I'm very curious to know, because I have a lot of respect for people. I don't just have automatic respect for Marines. I believe that if you're in the Marine Corps, you generally run into reality at various forms, and I'm curious to know what was going on there. Yeah, sorry about that, Barbara. I did say there would probably not be a show this week, but I had to push back my vacation, so we're not going there. We're not insulting this man. I'm going to take him at his word. And so I am curious to know what seems so wrong, like I don't know what I'm talking about. I often don't know what I'm talking about. And when people can show me what I'm not talking about, when I don't know what I'm talking about, then I can stop talking about things that I don't know anything about and learn something. So I'm kind of waiting for that. We're not doing that. That business. So whether he'll answer or not, I don't know. I'll move on. All right, so let's get to some questions here, because I have 6 days worth of shows to edit and post and get all that stuff done. But while it's true I wasn't in the armed services, I certainly attempted to be, and I've got a lot of friends who are on the pointy end of the spear, and they don't have that opinion of me. So I'm curious to know where your evidence is on that one. Yeah, boomers are 60 plus. Hopefully he's typing up, be my hope. All right, let me see here. Let's go to our forum and find out what we got here. No, nobody's insulting any Marines on this show. And obviously, there are some people that don't tell the truth about that, but I'm not gonna make that assumption here either. I'd much rather be wrong about this than go down that road. I'm a boomer, you're a boomer, he's a boomer, she's a boomer. Wouldn't you like to be a boomer too? Be a boomer. That's a boomer thing to say, kind of, I think. That's actually funny enough to repeat. Casey Fluggager says 3'9" Marine biologist. That I like because they're not insulting the Marines, and that's actually clever. Gen Z, Sammy. Hey, Sammy, how are you? We welcome Gen Z here. We welcome everybody here, actually. But I've often wanted to talk about. I often want to not about. I'd like to talk with Gen Z about things and have them have a chance to explain to them why people have this reaction, because I know a lot of Gen Zers think that boomers just hate them and despise them, and and think they're trash. I don't think that at all. I just think you've been cheated, badly cheated, and when we talk about these things, it's just that there are so many things that we experience that were just so much different than what you guys are experiencing, and it just seemed to be so much better. Not better because we did it. I mean, we weren't responsible for the society we grew up in, neither are you, but just looking at what the heck was it? I don't know. It's one of these things, I guess it was one of these where are they now kind of things. And I took a look at, hope you're sitting down there, Gen Z, but I just saw something like, here's what ABBA looks like today. And they're old. I don't know how that happened, but people my age are much older than I am. But just looking at that, and then they showed clips from some, of the first music videos, almost pre-music. They weren't even music videos; they were just performances. And I just take ABBA as an example, which has always kind of been considered to be just sort of this inane kind of, pop nonsense, just pop, nothingness, and it is. There's no substance really there. But I just look at these ABBA videos, and I just think, I look at everybody's smiling, everybody's happy, everybody's having fun, everybody's just kind of having fun, and same thing goes for like Hotel California, Eagles, and one of my favorite songs ever, Boys of Summer, and all of this stuff is just, it was so just so untoxic, and the people weren't, the women weren't crazy and filled with rage, and it's just a much looser time. I actually was thinking about this about Gen Z just the other day, and not in a negative way. It's not a hey, okay, boomer moment. This is a genuine question and a genuine concern, and maybe we just talk about this for a second before we get into the questions. I wonder how many members of Gen Z, I was looking at this the other day, I wonder how many of them ever climbed a tree. I'd be willing to bet you the number of Gen Zers who have climbed a tree is significantly lower as a percentage than the number of boomers that have climbed a tree. In fact, I'd be willing to bet that boomers, Gen X, Gen Y, millennials, and Gen Z, tree climbing numbers gone down. And I can understand why somebody from Gen Z would think, what the hell does that have to do with anything? That's the stupidest thing I ever heard of, which would be, which is an understandable reaction from somebody who's never climbed a tree. Because I haven't seen any kids climbing trees in a long time. And there's a lot about climbing a tree that's really exhilarating. This is the kind of thing I'd like to just sit and talk with Gen Z about, you know. It's exhilarating. It's empowering. It's fun. And it's mostly fun because it's a little dangerous. And you're kind of aware of that. And I think that kind of has repercussions in the real world. You know, when you do something like look, I've known kids that have fallen out of trees, and I've known kids that have broken an arm or a leg. I've never broken a bone in my life because I'm fitter than the average kid that falls out of trees. But on playgrounds and monkey bars and swing sets and all that stuff, I've known kids who occasionally, rarely, I might know one who broke an arm or something. But the point I'm trying to make here is climbing a tree is something that you have to do carefully. And if you do it carefully, you're good. And there's an exhilaration in doing it. And when you climb down, you feel like you accomplished something. And that attitude stays with you in other things in life. You're ready to take risks, to do things that are kind of interesting and fun and cool. And you learn how to be careful, because if you're not careful, you fall down and break a leg. But falling down and breaking a leg is not the worst thing that could happen to you. Not falling down is the worst thing that could happen to you, I think, you know. And this is the thing I feel is so criminal about what was done to Gen Z is that they have never, that not only have they not been allowed to fall down out of trees, but I should rephrase that. Not only have they not fallen down out of trees, but they've not been allowed to. It's not their fault. They didn't ask for that. I think it'd be really amazing to just go out and try climbing some trees. I would join you, but unfortunately, climbing a tree requires cartilage, and my cartilage supplies are critically low. I think I could probably work my arms okay, and as long as I didn't have to move my knees too fast, I'd probably be all right. Sucks getting old, but it's better than the alternative. And I just have always felt that. Take care you don't resort to patting Zoomers and Millennials on the head in pity. This isn't pity. This is concern. It's a completely different thing. This is genuine concern. Yeah, I know there's no interest in driving a car because that's a risky thing to do, and it and I you know what I really wonder is that exhilaration a universal, or was it an ephemeral time-based thing? K1F8 says, you can climb a tree, take a chance on me. And that's one of my favorite ABBA songs. And Lord Bios has a line too from John Adams, try and fail, but never fail to try. I'm curious to know whether or not, if you took a bunch of 16-year-olds today and, let's say, using whips and winches, you know, windlasses and mechanical devices such as that, dragged them into driver school and got them their driver's license, and then got them a serviceable car. I'm genuinely curious. I'm genuinely asking this out of goodwill and a desire to know and a desire for people to be happy. Would 2 or 3 16-year-old boys get a kick out of getting in a car and just going someplace, like on the other side of the country, just to go? Part of me says that is a part of how we're wired. You know, at that age, you know, you want some freedom. You want to get out of the house. You got plenty of freedom. If you're 16 years old and you have your own car, it's a $300 car. Of course, that's back then. Nowadays, it's probably a $3,000 car, but you get the idea. You have, I almost said you had freedom, but what you really have when you have a car is you have privacy. That's what you've got. You've actually got privacy. That's the most important part about driving. It's not the freedom, it's the privacy. When you're in that car, you are in your own world. You can let anybody you want into the car. And if you don't want anybody in the car, you don't have to have anybody in the car. And you can play the radio and play whatever the hell you want to, as loud as you want to. But when I wonder if you would have that experience. Chunks said, "No, I think that's gone." Oh, hey, Chunks, glad you're back. I think it might be gone too, but I think it might be gone because I think the sort of the just in a, it's not really fair, but I can't think of another way to put it. If I wanted to see the Grand Canyon, I'll just watch a YouTube video on the Grand Canyon, and it's not the same thing. And that's kind of where I'm going with the whole climb in a tree thing. Flying an airplane is not the same as flying a flight simulator. I flew airplanes for 1,000 hours, and I got my instrument rating, and that was very, very hard, and I was very proud of it. I remain proud of it. I had wonderful times up there. I had a couple of scary times up there. Yeah, play the radio. There's a boomer statement for you. That's a great point there, Kaiwan. Yeah, play the radio. The AM radio. Waterloo, goodness sake, if I wanted to. Waterloo, no, my fate is to meet you. That's what I sounded like too. It's no exaggeration. Especially if you had a cassette player, not in the car, because those things would work. But my friend Steve Stipp and I drove from Miami to Connecticut. I was probably 16, I guess. We went in his. He's a year older than me. We went in his Ford. What was that? Maverick. What a piece of crap. Back seat of the car, bench seats, not bucket seats, bench seats, and the back of the went like this, and the bottom of the seat went like that. So this giant void, and where you need the most support. And that car's seats were so uncomfortable that we couldn't get out of the driveway without having to have pillows on us. Anyway, we drove up to Connecticut, and you get the radio, which is AM radio, and it's just garbage, and the range is short, and especially if you're traveling, you're pretty much out of range in 10 minutes. And so we had just a cassette player we had ABBA's Greatest Hits, and we had Dreamweaver. And the thing ran on a couple of batteries, probably D batteries, which I haven't seen that many of lately. By the way, the demise of the D battery, I realize now, can be directly correlated to the fall of the Republic. The percentage of D batteries in circulation and the structural integrity of the country, direct correlation. But you'd start playing it, and for an hour, half an hour, it sounded great. And then after 2 hours of playing it, Waterloo, couldn't escape if I wanted to. And then you'd finally put new batteries back in it, and you remember, my God, I remember what the song sounded like. Anyway, I don't know if that thrill is gone. It's hard to say. I really don't know. I don't know. But those of us that experienced road trips know what I'm talking about. Surely, well, even I'm not even sure about that. I was going to say, surely the desire to get out of the house at 16, 17, that's got to be hardwired, right? Everybody's got to want that, right? But, we're finding more and more young people just kind of staying at home. It's like something biologically is short-circuited. Yeah, we'll see. All right, anyway, back we go. Those of us who did it know what it was like, and I think, believe it or not, Gen Zers who might be listening, most of the boomer reaction, whether they know it or not, or even admit it or not, whether they know it or not, is not so much "you guys suck" as you've been robbed. There's so many great things that you didn't get to do, and that you're making fun of and mocking without having understood just how much you're missing. One of the things that I really like, one of the kind of genres of YouTube that I really, really like, is watching young people react to things that were common for us for the first time, and usually music. So you'll see somebody's like, it's the first, I've never heard Bohemian Rhapsody before, or I've never heard Hotel California before. And you watch people listening to this and think, oh, here, this is going to be some, boomer music's going to be just, honky-tonk pianos and violins. And then they hear this for the first time and they think, God, this stuff's actually fantastic. So it really was. It really was fantastic. And And I'm not saying that because I didn't create the music. It's not like I made the music. I just think that the music was awesome. I think that the 80s music was. I saw a video that was all of the hits that came out in 40 years ago now, 84. And it's like bam, 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 bam. Honestly, it's just so incredible. And, classic rock from the 70s. Anyway. I think Bill's one of the best, most courageous boomers. Thank you. All I was saying is that there's no old man knowledge about the new way American politics are operating. I'm crass and boorish. You're not crass. You're not boorish. You're a frickin' Marine, sir. You'll always be a Marine. I often get into, it's not even laziness so much as it's, because it'd be lazy if I knew about it. It's an unawareness. Yes. The solution and the answers and all of the stuff that's going to happen is going to be different than what happened before. Yes, absolutely right. And I need to be reminded of that. So I don't know if I was actually predicting how things would go, but in any event, yeah, that's a legitimate point. All right, here we go. Back to the fabulousbill.com forum. Yes, Emperor Fi is right, pal. Still questions for 5:30? Yes, here we go. Thank you, Roadrunner. Thank you very much for curating this for me. Okay, here we go. All right, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We'll do them all, by God. Thank you for stepping up at the last minute, Roadrunner. I really appreciate that. It's really wonderful, the people that curate this stuff on the forum. They just do it because they're just awesome. Steve Young, good evening, Bill. What crime did the judge in the New York Trump case charge the jury to render judgment on? Well, I guess it's the crime of expecting that having I think Donald Trump's felony conviction was due to his archaic belief that it's possible that regular people know more than elites. That's ultimately what this whole thing's about when you get right down to it. Ironic, especially, coming from the so-called Democratic Party, that the belief in their certainty in their own position. Going back to the Democratic Party again, just as another of the many planks of evidence there are, the Democratic Party has something called superdelegates. The Republican Party doesn't have superdelegates. The Republican Party is set up so that whoever wins the most votes of the Republicans out there during the primary season, actual voters, will determine who the nominee is going to be. But the Democratic Party has that mechanism in place, but they also have superdelegates. And these superdelegates are there to make sure that Democratic voters make the right decision. And if it turns out they make the wrong decision, like voting for Bernie, let's say, and wanting Bernie to be the nominee, then the superdelegates come in the Democratic Party to make sure that the democratic process doesn't run uncontrolled, and that people won't. It's possible that people will vote for the incorrect answer or candidate. So what this whole thing with Trump is it's a battle of the elites versus the people. And if there was evidence that the elites did a better job than the people, I'd probably be an elitist. And I probably could be an elitist too. But the evidence is overwhelming that all of us together make better decisions than that all of us are smarter than the smartest of us. I mean, is this really hard to figure out? You really honestly think that 5 people or 10 people in a room who all went to Harvard are smarter than 330 million people making decisions in real time with direct experience, decades of experience? How can you be that stupid? But they are. It's narcissism, vanity. That's the thing. It just keeps back again and again. You dig deep enough, and you keep coming back to narcissism. So Donald Trump is a guy who not only could be elitist, was an elitist, but has a there's a personality, there's an orneriness to Donald Trump, and a rebelliousness to him. And I'll tell you who else has it, and that's Elon Musk. Elon Musk has a rebelliousness against complacency. And so Musk does things like buy Twitter, and Musk is on the, hard on the side of free speech, because Musk understands that, because Musk is smart enough, and so is Trump. Trump and Musk are both successful enough to understand that they don't need unearned approval. They don't have to be insecure about what they've accomplished. So, not 300 million, 160 million. You're right about that. So insecure people need to be constantly reinforced about them being on the right side. So they all say the same things, that this is the smart person's opinion on climate change, the smart person's opinion on who to vote for, the smart person's opinion on this, when in point of fact, the smart people are wrong. I know that sounds like a difficult thing to come to grips with, but it's just plain simple. They're wrong. They're not nearly as smart as all of us together. Provably so. And the fact that they think they are is an indication of actually low intelligence. Russell James with a super chat. Just paying my dues for Club Bill Whittle. Been away for a while, but glad to see you're still making content, sir. Thank you, Russell. Jimmy, excuse me, not Russell. Jimmy's not Russell James. Thank you very much for that. That's very kind of you. Yeah, so this is what it is, Steve. Trump doesn't need the money. He doesn't need the power. Trump doesn't need to get elected in order to fly around in a nice jet. He's got his own jet that's real nice. He's got his name on it. He doesn't need any of this stuff. So he can actually buck the system because he doesn't need the system. He didn't, and not only does he not need it, he doesn't owe it anything. Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, they're worth hundreds of millions of dollars. How did that happen? How is Joe Biden worth tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars? How? How is Pelosi worth $100 million? Not her husband. Well, how is she worth that? Well, how is that her net worth? How did that happen? Because of the system. Because she got paid, and Clinton got paid, and all these people got paid in order to have some influence over their ability to exercise coercive power, as having the mechanisms of the state behind them. So it's interesting. I think if you look at I saw something on this. It was about the net worth of a president going into office and coming out of office. For instance, Ronald Reagan, I think, was worth $2 or $3 million when he entered office, and I think he was worth $5 million when he left. Barack Obama was worth $1 or $2 million when he entered, and worth 150 something million when he left. Biden's even worse. And the only person on that list whose net worth went down probably ever was Donald Trump. Donald Trump didn't go into politics to make money. He went into politics to lose money. Or you probably better to say he lost money by going into politics because he could afford to. So that makes him different. It doesn't make him automatically trustworthy, but what it does do is it removes the single greatest reason for him not to be trustworthy, and that is lining his own pockets. So interesting to me that these Democrats who talk so much about socialism are the ones who are most determined to get the perks of money, and the money, but especially the perks of money, the jets, the restaurants. Remember how many vacations Barack Obama and his family took with their staff of 40, Okay, how's that guy going to do that if he's not in politics? If you took politics and DEI off the table, Barack Obama is probably destined to become a professor, not of law, but of something, and probably be making, I don't know. I think Barack Obama's got the potential, if you take politics and stuff off the table, probably to make $300,000-$400,000 a year. I think that's reasonable, based on his oratorical skill set and his general knowledge. But $200 million? No. Bill Clinton Bill Clinton's best possible future, in my opinion, in terms of success, if he was not in politics, would be that I think Bill Clinton could probably have made tens of millions of dollars as a car salesman, as a car salesman. I think Clinton Ford and Clinton Chevy and Clinton, Mercedes Benz and and Clinton Hyundai and Clinton Subaru, all of them in Little Rock, Arkansas. I think he could have made a ton of money as a car salesman, and that would have been an honest living. It's not the most reputable job in the world, but it certainly makes you look like a saint compared to a politician. But I believe Bill Clinton could have made a significant amount of money as a car salesman, owning car lots. That would have been a good future. It would have been an honorable position for him, because the guy's got a lot of personality, a lot of charm. Not real big with the organizational details. He can offer special discounts to young ladies that come onto the lot, and he can be Bill Clinton. So the crime that Trump was convicted of is the crime of not being part of the inside system, and in fact openly stating he means to destroy the system. That's why they had to convict him, and they don't realize that they seem to keep thinking that, boy, when the Trump supporters find out that he did this, they're going to stop supporting him. It's like, we are aware, there's nothing you can say about Trump that I'm not already concerned about, and I don't care. I know where the danger is. I don't like having, I'm not accusing Donald Trump of being a roach. I don't like having cockroaches in the house. But if I've got cockroaches in the house and there's a frickin' leopard trying to come through the window, I got my priorities straight on which one of these two things I'm going to be dealing with first. And this is something they cannot understand. Bart Hennon. Okay, I may regret posting this. Apologies in advance. So, don't worry, Bart. We'll be all right. So in 2022, there was supposed to be a red wave as reported by all right-wing news. There wasn't. Repeal of Roe v. Wade wasn't supposed to hurt us. It did. Also, according to right-wing news, the prosecution's case against Donald J. Trump was weak. Trump was supposed to be not convicted, at least not on everything. Now all 34 counts he is convicted. Question, is it possible the right-wing news is the fake news? Sorry, I'm just frustrated about always losing. I don't blame you, Bart. Being convicted on I'm not aware that anybody's ever convicted on all counts. And when you have 34 counts, usually you get a conviction on 18 of them or something like that. So that alone is it. This was clearly a rigged political theater. Now your point about the red wave is a good point, and it's absolutely true that Roe did in fact cause a large number of Democrats to come out and vote. But I think the reason that the red wave didn't happen was not because more Democrats came out and voted. It's because fewer Republicans came out and voted. And I think the reason that they didn't come out and vote was because Trump wasn't on the ballot. This Trump thing is not about. This is not a Republican movement. This is a populist movement. And the left loves to talk about that term. If you're a populist, you're automatically Hitler. I can understand why they would be very concerned about somebody who could get common people, regular people, riled up enough to overthrow a corrupt system. I can understand why they'd be very afraid of that. But I don't find any shame in being a populist. On the contrary, I think that being a populist is about as noble a position as you could take. It basically says, hey, I'm a person with my opinions, and I am surrounded by other people with their opinions, and I'm right about some things and I'm wrong about other things. Let's talk it over and see if we can come to an agreement. And that's what populism essentially is. But Trump wasn't on the ballot in 2022. I think if he had been on the ballot in 2022, we would have seen a lot more turnout, because 2022 was about Republicans versus Democrats. 24, 20, and 16 are about Trump versus Democrats. And so there are a lot of people out there who've given up on Republican politics. Look, I think it's a mistake, but I understand it, certainly. I mean, I certainly get it. Especially when the Republican leadership starts running up against a guy who's there to reform the system on a fundamental level. And so, I was, needless to say, very disappointed in 2022 as well. But there it was. I am utterly convinced he won in 2020, and I'm certain. I have a high degree of confidence about that. But I am 100%, absolutely 100% certain that if he did not, in fact, actually win the vote, it's because of big tech's finger on the scales. I think the Hunter Biden laptop story alone would have made the difference. So there's no question that election was stolen. Whether it was stolen exclusively in the polls is not even relevant. The big tech bias is. Dr. Robert Epstein estimated that Trump would have won 9 out of the 11 swing states if Google didn't manipulate search results and say things like "get out and vote" to Democrats and not say that to Republicans. So that's election tampering. That's not only a felony; it's a high-level treason. And when Epstein started putting some evidence down with some receipts, sent it in to Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz and 2 other senators wrote to Google about it, and Google turned it off the second they got that letter. They immediately turned that bias off because they were aware of the fact that this was a provable accusation, and with enough evidence, it would be possible to prove that they had, in fact, tampered with that election, and that could cost them their monopoly. So they're afraid of that. That gives me some hope. So I'm not, number one, I'm not surprised about the outcome. And number two, there's no question that when CNN and MSNBC are talking to their audience about how the prosecution didn't prove the case prior to the verdict in order to prepare them for a hung jury or something, when they admit that the prosecution didn't prove the case, and you get into all the thing with not only with the judge's instructions, but the judge's daughter got $9 million from the Democratic Party or something like that. I mean, it's just, this thing is going to get overturned on appeal very quickly. The question is, what are they going to do between now and then? What's the worst thing that can happen? They put him in jail? Okay, I'll vote for him in jail. I'd be happy to vote for him in jail. I should know this. I'm going to look it up now because I really should know it. I was asking about it earlier. Hang on a second. Let's go back to the Constitution here. The U.S. Constitution states that the President must be a natural-born citizen of the United States. He must be at least 35 years old and have been a resident of the United States for 14 years. Nothing in there about whether or not he can be a felon. That's got to bother them a little bit. So they can give him 15 felony convictions. They can give him 34 felony convictions. And if they give him all of those felony convictions, he won't be able to legally own a firearm for the time that those convictions are in place until it's overturned. But he still be president of the United States. See, our founders got every single thing right. They got every single thing right. I really thought, I was thinking, did they put a restriction there about felony? And I thought, I don't think they did. Well, they didn't, because they got everything right. It's just hard to imagine that this is not divinely inspired. That's a conclusion you can come to one way or the other. But I've never seen anything in the Constitution that the Constitution got wrong, ever. And every time I think, well, surely they got this wrong, I just realize, no, they got it right. We just didn't listen. From Logander Knight, Kleider, here's a nice super chat. I care nothing for the crimes the left convicted Trump for. I've seen all of the crimes that the leftists have skated on, basically a variation on the phrase, I care nothing for your booze. I've seen what makes you cheer. Wow, that's beautifully said. I've never heard that expression before. So I look, if he's in jail, I'll vote for him in jail. And if they haul him away to a dungeon someplace or whatever, then Donald Trump can open the phone book, pick a regular sounding guy and say, this is the guy I support, and I'll vote for that guy. They're just not going to get away from it. They can't get away from it. They're going to, I think this gave them the election. We'll see. But I understand your concerns about it, Brett. Don't give up. Remember, here's the thing. This is the most important thing you'll hear all night. You can go home after this, honestly. The objective is not to put Donald Trump in jail. The objective is not to get DAs. The objective is not to socialize the country. There's one objective that these people have, and that objective is to get us to give up. That's the only objective there is, and that's why they continually bombard us with all of these catastrophes to make us give up. They cannot win this fight if we don't surrender. Of that, I am utterly, completely convinced. They cannot triumph unless we surrender. Now, that is a real possibility. So their win is on the table, but they don't. And it's the way I look at it with the Democrats and this whole future of the country is it's very much like in a playoff situation where you either control your own destiny or you don't. We control our own destiny. I'm not saying we're going to win the games we need to. John, thank you very much. Again, $99 super chat from John Eden. Nothing attached to it. Thank you, John. But really, when I say, like in a playoff situation, we control our own destiny, it's up to us. If we come out and vote in the numbers that Trump has, then we'll win the election. They won't be able to cheat their way out of it. The Democrats don't control their own destiny. They are dependent on us losing in order for them to win. They're dependent on us not showing up. If we show up, they lose. So that's why they try so hard to make sure we don't show up. And they don't do it just to say, they think that, oh, well, we're going to show these people what a rotten guy Trump is. I don't care, number one. I don't think he's a rotten guy. I think he's a good man. He may have done rotten things in his rotten business surrounded by other rotten people, but I'm not voting for him for Pope. And I'm convinced he's not committed any of the serious crimes that he's been accused of. And the fact that they have to invent crimes to try him on is my evidence that he hasn't done anything seriously wrong. Because if he had done something seriously wrong, we would have heard about it a long time ago. So don't be discouraged, Bart. Hang in there. Don't let them get you down. Just let them get you angry. That's where I would go with that. Okay, a couple of Eric Blakes here. Here's my biggest question about this lawfare bill. How exactly do we hold these kangaroo court judges accountable? Everyone says they should be disbarred. Well, okay, who disbars them? Could they be arrested, and by whom? Simple fact is justice must be served against this corruption, but how can it be served? Well, the soft landing answer, Eric, is that we win the election in November with enough of a vote in the House and Senate, and we basically just go in there. Look, all we have to do is win the presidential election. Okay, that's all. That's all. Because in order to get things done, you need the House, the Senate, and the presidency. But the one thing you can do with just the presidency is, and this is how the Democrats have gotten us into this trouble, is the president controls the Justice Department. The president appoints the Attorney General, and the Attorney General runs the Justice Department. That is a political appointment made by the President of the United States. If we win the presidential election, then this time, I think he'll be a little more careful than he was last time. This time, we'll get somebody like, I don't know, Matt Gaetz or Trey Gowdy or Jim Jordan as Attorney General. And if that person becomes Attorney General, then you could basically turn the Justice Department, you basically could go through the DOJ, the FBI, ATF, all of it, and just do kind of an untouchables thing. Like, we're looking for honest people. We're looking for honest people who have a track record of being honest, a track record of people standing up and taking punishment in order to speak the truth. Those are the people we want, and those are the ones we're going to promote. And all of the rest of you guys you can go out and learn how to code, because you're done. You're finished. If it turns out that you committed illegal acts, like the people responsible for planting these false stories about Russian collusion, then if you have the Justice Department, you go after those people, you bring a case against them, you try them, you convict them in a court of law, and then you send them to prison for a very long period of time. That would slow this kind of shenanigans down quite a lot, which is why they're so terrified of him. He's openly stated now, Trump stated, I'm coming after the deep state. He said that in 2016, but he didn't know how bad it was, and I didn't know how bad it was. Nobody knew how bad it was. We know how bad it is now. So that's how it works, Eric. President appoints the Attorney General and the Justice Department. President appoints the head of the FBI, CIA, all of those agencies. All of these DEI appointments that you see testifying in front of Congress, they're all appointed by the Biden administration. You could appoint somebody in charge of the FAA who understands what an airplane is. That would be a novel change. You could have somebody in charge of the FAA who goes in there and says that DEI is going to get us all killed. We're simply going to reverse those policies, and we're going to be hiring on the basis of merit. And anybody who says that that's racist is basically saying that that black people or Hispanics or anybody else is not capable of merit, and I don't believe that. That's a racist belief that these liberals have, that you have to be able to carve out special places for, just taking black Americans as an example, you have to be able to carve out special cases for black people because they can't make it on their own merit. That's the Democratic position. That is insufferably racist. I want no part of that pathetic, disgraceful, disgusting ideology. I'm fully convinced that black people, any people, can succeed on merit in this country, and to say that they can't and that you have to have carve-outs for DEI is an admission of how racist you are, you miserable low-life swine. Back to Eric again. Bill, you've talked tonight about, it's already real-time, clearing XYZ out of the government. You mentioned getting rid of the Departments of Education and Energy. Frankly, they're the two we all talk about, but how about these other cabinet departments? Health and Human Services, yep. Housing and Urban Development, yep. Agriculture, yep. Transportation, yep. We don't need any of them. We need something that looks like the FBI, I said, and we need something that looks like Health and Human Services, because like it or not, we do have a large social superstructure, infrastructure. And no matter how hardcore you are about this, you cannot burn down a building that 160 million people live in. You got to build alternative housings and then migrate them. I'm talking about philosophically. Right? You can't just simply say we're cutting off welfare and all of those benefits. You can say we are going to start moving towards a world where the number of people that are actually on welfare is 5% of what it is now, but you can't just plain throw those people out in the street. You just can't do it. It's not only not politically possible, it's morally wrong. You have to simply start building it down. But things like agriculture and transportation, immediately. They can just immediately go. Health and Human Services, you've got Medicare to administer, you've got Social Security to administer. That kind of thing has to be taken care of. Housing and urban development needs to go because, frankly, anytime the government messes around with the market, all they do is make things more expensive and garbage. People have incomes, even if their income comes from the government. If they have income, then they need to live someplace. And if they have income, that means they can pay income. And if you get something like HUD out of the way, then you will find people who will find a way to make money off of low-income housing. And the way you make money off of low-income housing is you provide inexpensive housing at a low price. I've lived in some pretty low-income housing. I've not lived in any official low-income housing. I've just lived in cheap apartments. And that wasn't the end of the world. I lived in an apartment for, I don't know, when I first got here, for probably 2 years. It was like a converted motel, you know? It was kind of a crummy place. But it was my crummy place, and it was relatively clean, crummy place. And I had the lock on the door, and I paid rent on the crummy place, and I decided maybe I should start working, get a less crummy place. But it wasn't paid for by somebody else. See, I had to pay the rent on it, which meant that I had to take care of it because I was living there, and it belonged to me on some level, at least temporarily. So that whole thing kind of ties together. This is the problem with dependency. Not only the biggest problem with dependency is that it makes you dependent. And here's the thing about being dependent: when you're dependent, you lose hope because you don't control your future anymore. I'll give you an example. It's got nothing to do with the government dependency. There's a different kind of dependency. So back in '84, something like that, I want to say, I'd written a movie, and I was really aggressively trying to get this thing funded, and this was Miami in the early to mid '80s. And so there was a chance of coming up with some money. There's a lot of cash around and so on. And there were also tax benefits that benefited us and so on. So here's where dependency will kill you. I had gotten, the plan was to do a limited partnership. A limited partnership is where people put money into the organization, but they have no control over the money. The limited partners have the control over the money. The partnership And so in order to make that a legal investment, you had to provide something called a prospectus. And the prospectus was a statement of all of the risks. So in order for somebody to invest, you could only approach a certain number of people, other restrictions, so on. But a limited partnership was how you made movies back in the day. And what that entailed was approaching investors and handing them this piece of paper that says you're an idiot if you invest in this, because here's all the things that can go wrong, and they probably will go wrong. And if you decide to put money into a movie deal, you're a frickin' moron. But at least you're a frickin' moron who understands the risk. So knock yourself out. Okay, so far so good. Now, a prospectus is a legal document, and it costs a fair amount of money to write one of those, even though it's essentially just legal boilerplate. And I didn't have the means to pay an attorney to do that. I was way out of my league. I did have a couple of attorneys who were friends, family friends, and I went and pitched the movie idea to them, and they agreed to write the prospectus on spec with, like a piece of the back end or something. I get a free prospectus. But since it was a free prospectus, it was the absolute bottom of their to-do list. And I spent 6 months waiting for that prospectus, that free prospectus, and I never got it. I would call the law office on Tuesday morning and say, hey, just checking on the status of my prospectus here. Jim's out of the office until next Thursday, so can you give us a call a week from Monday? What am I going to say? No? Am I going to demand my money's worth? Am I going to take my business somewhere else? No. I just had to eat that. And so for the next 13 days or whatever it was, I couldn't do anything. I could not move forward. And since I couldn't move forward, I just sat there, and it was soul destroying. Just soul destroying. And then along would come that column back again. Yeah, look, we're working on this. We got a couple troubles. We're just got a little bit more backed up than we thought. We're going to need probably till the end of May. And it's like, Jesus, the end of May, my God, And that's what dependency does. It stops you. I was dependent on them. That was a big mistake. And so when you are waiting for money to come or something to come parachuting out of the sky, you have no control over it. You're not paying for it, so you can't demand it. You can't go someplace else. You just sit and wait, and you have to eat it, and you keep eating it, and it's just plain miserable. Miserable. It's about as unhappy as I've ever been, I want to say. So now imagine your whole life is like that. Everything, your food, your income, your transportation, your clothing, all of it. You're just dependent on a package to come drop out of the sky for you. It's terrible. Terrible. Colonel Angus says it sounds exactly like the VA. Yeah, but what you going to do? Yeah, for those people who say we should have socialized medicine, well, we already have socialized medicine. It's called the Veteran Administration. Tell me how that works out for you. Go talk to a bunch of people that have served their country and been wounded, either mentally, physically, or both, and who deserve the finest care that we have to offer, not the worst care that we have to offer. Go ask them how that socialized medicine at the VA is working out for them. Pathetic. It's really genuinely disgraceful. All right, moving on here. So that's a couple of Erics out of the way. We got ourselves a Roadrunner and a Steve Young and a Guy Balla. Guy! Okay, that's very refreshing. Let me just check something here. Well, I'm just got all kinds of warm fuzzy feelings. Just having a look there. Well, Guy, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay, just checked my mail, so I'd actually sent an email to Guy, so that was great to hear. So I'll get back to that. Okay, so Roadrunner. Greetings, friend William. Greetings to you, friend Roadrunner. You've stated that those involved in election fraud need to be prosecuted for their crimes, but who will do the prosecuting? The states where the cheating will occur have all progressive attorneys general. The cities have progressive DAs. As long as there's prosecutional discretion and qualified immunity, nothing will happen. I agree about that. If the House or Senate decide that someone needs to be prosecuted, the DOJ will not do anything unless it's a Republican. How can the U.S. turn the current legal system back to its justice system? Thank you for your insight. I think I covered most of that already with the president being able to appoint the attorney general and shake the Justice Department down. A more interesting question is, how does that affect How does the federal system affect the states? I don't want the ring of power. There's no controlling the ring of power. So I don't want a powerful federal government to make the states do what they have to do and then back off, because the backing off part never happens. I think there's a lot to be said for if you so just follow the steps here. If you win the election in 2024, even if you don't win the House or the Senate, you appoint an aggressive, incorruptible attorney general. And this attorney general needs to be going looking at all crimes, not just Democratic crimes, all crimes, although it certainly seems that what we've been seeing lately is pretty much leaning in one direction. But you find evidence of Republican corruption or collusion or anything like that, just run them up the flagpole with the rest of the people. If you can do that on a federal level, bring indictments and prosecution against people who go to trial. I want to be as clear about this as I can. I'm not saying just lock them up. Everybody's saying, Hillary Clinton should lock her up. No, I don't want to lock her up. I want to put her on trial. I want to put her on trial. I want to put Comey on trial. I want to put all these people on trial. And if they can, and if the burden of proof is on us, and if they cannot be proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, then that's the end of it. I don't want to hear another word about it. I want them put on trial. But I suspect that if they are put on trial, there'll be a number of convictions following, because I don't want to see any more atrocities like the one we saw today. I think they deserve to be tried in a non-political location. All the rest of the protections that I would give to anybody. I wouldn't want Hillary Clinton to have a kangaroo court, because I don't think you need a kangaroo court. And if you did need a kangaroo court, then she's probably not guilty. I think she can be found guilty based on the evidence that I heard the director of the FBI list in 45 minutes. So, yeah, Colonel Angus says Rubicon was crossed today. I think this was definitely another step in and it's embarrassing and it's shameful. It's kangaroo court. But the short form Roadrunner is, I think I covered most of that for you already. I do agree about prosecutional discretion. This idea that one individual gets to decide, that's a crime. Yeah, he did what? Oh, he murdered 14 orphans. Did he really? Cut them to pieces with an axe in his basement, and then he ate. Okay, all right. Yeah, that's not very nice. No, we're not going to bring charges against the guy. No. I know you got his fingerprints, and I know you got his DNA everywhere. I just don't want to do it. Okay, just drop that case. Okay. That's the legal system we have right now. That's actually the legal system we have right now. There should be no such thing as prosecutional discretion. And the year, I did 2 years of debate. The first year topic was energy, and the second year was prison reform. Might have been judicial. It was prison reform, but it was the justice system reform. Now, one of the cases that you would get was a plea bargaining case, and one of the cases would be that you need to eliminate plea bargaining. Plea bargaining is a travesty of justice that is made in order to accommodate the reality that we don't have the capacity to handle all of the crimes that are committed in this country legally, not legally. Judiciously, fairly. If somebody is guilty of first-degree murder and they plead down to manslaughter in order to clear the docket, then justice is not being done. The entire idea of plea bargaining is it goes against the idea of justice. It's an admission. We know that you did this, but we're going to give you significantly less punishment, in some cases no punishment, because we simply don't have the resources to try you of the crime that you're guilty of. That's just, if you think about it, it's just plain wrong. It's just wrong. So plea bargaining, judicial prosecutor's discretion, that kind, prosecutional discretion, these things have to go. And if you have to build more prisons, and if you have to build more courtrooms and elect more judges, then that's what you have to do. And citizens need to man up about jury duty. And this should not be something, well, first of all, I don't think that it should be something that has to take, 4 months or a year or however long these people have been sitting on this thing. I just don't. If it turns out, if you have to, if you have a case that's so complex that you have to try it for 4 months, then somebody's not doing their job right. If somebody's guilty, you should be able to prove that in a week. I know that sounds naive, but I really do believe it. I really just don't. I don't get it. If you've got to go that far into the weeds, and didn't the jury in this Trump trial, didn't they get something like, was it 28 pages of instructions or something like that? It's like 28 pages of instructions. Here are your instructions. If you are not absolutely convinced beyond a reasonable doubt that he did it, then you have to find him not guilty. Do not be swayed by, listen to other people's arguments, but if you are convinced in your heart that you've got one position one way or another, then stick to your guns. There's your instructions now. Now go ahead. So, yeah, this discretion thing is just terrible. Here's a Steve Young. The evidence of the Supreme Court might choose to look at is if the states will not put Donald J. Trump's names on the ballot because in jail, and does not allow a write-in name. That is government mandating who the citizens are allowed to vote for. Yeah, and I think frankly that any effort to take him off the ballot is already, I think that's already gone. It was 50 pages, 55 pages. I think this issue has already been resolved with whatever those 2 states were that tried to get his name off the ballot. I think the Supreme Court's already weighed in on this. My argument, if I was arguing in front of the Supreme Court on this one, would be, well, Your Honors, I don't believe that Donald Trump is guilty, but he's been found guilty. But the point is simply this. There is no constitutional requirement that says that the President of the United States must have a clean criminal record. There's no requirement that says he cannot be a felon. And since there is no requirement for that, and since this case is under appeal, removing him from the ballot or removing him from the election is a violation of the people's ability to elect their leadership. If it turned out that the Constitution did say that a felony was disqualifying, then you'd have an entirely different argument. But since there isn't, then this whole thing is can wait. It can wait. And if it turns out that the concern is that he is in fact guilty of felonies, and he does win the election, and then he pardons himself, then that is the system operating according to how the system was constructed. That is how the Constitution has determined we will govern ourselves. And your job as members of the Supreme Court is to uphold the Constitution and interpret laws that are in line with the Constitution. It is possible that an injustice is being done in that situation, but this is the risk that you take when you have the presumption of innocence. That's what I would argue in front of the Supreme Court. And I think you'd win that argument, frankly. Look, he's got to be on the ballot. He is the nominee. He's the nominee not only for half the country, well more than half the country. And Trump's inroads in the black and Hispanic communities and all the rest of it is really, really encouraging. One of the people I heard analyzing this said one of the reasons he's getting so much support among blacks and Hispanics is because they're saying, look, we feel the system's been rigged against us from the beginning, and now we see an actual high-level white guy who's being railroaded the same way we feel we've always been railroaded. Now, whether or not the system is that functionally corrupt, or there's no question that there's some degree of that going on, and there's also no question that a lot of people who are in fact guilty claim that it was because of a corrupt system, and so you got that all in there. But the point is, he's getting real support from people who have never supported Republicans before, because he's not a Republican. This isn't about being a Republican. It's about being honest. If you really want to see something really, it's a short. It's a YouTube short because they can get it out in a short. Dave Chappelle's monologue on Saturday Night Live is an amazing wake up call, where he's explaining to these New Yorkers why people support Donald Trump, and he's not saying I'm a Trump supporter. He's saying he's an honest liar, is what Chappelle said. Chappelle said he got out there in the debate with Hillary, and Hillary says he doesn't pay his taxes, and Trump says that's because I'm smart. He says, if you want me to pay more taxes, change the tax code, but you won't do that because Hillary Clinton supporters make the same benefits from it that I do, and they will never change the tax code. And that's when Dave Chappelle says, damn, Star is born. So we'll see. We'll see. I do know that they do not understand. Eric Blake says the actual quote is, I know the system is rigged because I use it. And I said, God damn. Yeah, that's a real thing that Chappelle's talking about there. And they'll never understand this. Logan again, Bill, I'm Gen Z. I'm in college to be a social studies teacher, and I cannot thank you enough for your work. Your What We Saw series has been an invaluable resource. Thank you so very much for that. My goodness, such a kind thing to say. Thank you very much. I'm still paying a bit of a price for that. I'm still having a real hard time getting going, and I almost found myself doing this in the back door. You will never hear me use 4 letters that are associated with genuine psychological distress. But I do think that series did take a toll on me on some level. I think it really just sucked a lot of... you had to go to some dark places to write that. And I don't feel like I've completely come back from those dark places, to be perfectly honest with you. But I will. And I'm proud of it, and I'm glad that it was done. And there's Guy Bello. Guy, I don't know if you're watching, but if you're watching, I didn't say those. I will not use those letters. I refuse to use those letters because it debases. Just mentioning them, even mentioning to say that I'm not worthy of those 4 letters in terms of the degree of whatever anguish I might be in, debases people who actually suffer from those 4 letters. And I'm not gonna ever use those 4 letters with any situation I find myself in, because I know what those letters actually mean, and I know what people who genuinely suffer from those 4 letters go through, and what I'm talking about is nothing like that, not even close. Guy, thank you very much, and thank you for everything, and you know what I'm talking about, so very grateful. All right, so that'll do it. We got through the questions, gangaroos. I'm going to be taking 4 days off in Hawaii, and A.K.A. Woody Fool says, Empire of Terror haunts me every day. Thanks for such profound writing. You're very welcome. It's this is what we fight against, and when I get back, I'm really hoping to have reset the circuits enough so that I can get that Daily Wire 30-day membership thing going. And also, by the way, people have asked, what happened and why did it take so long and stuff. Daily Wire was in they had their own issues to take care of for a while, and that had something to do with it as well. It's not that I was reluctant. I just didn't want to. I didn't want to add any complexity to what they were dealing with. It seems to have largely blown over now, but right as Empire of Terror was debuting, they got themselves into some they were just dealing with some issues that occupied their full attention. So that was part of it too. I heard a term today. Hang on. I gotta find it. Let's see if I can find it. I'm getting all kinds of results. So maybe somebody can answer it for me. Heard it for the first time today. There's a German expressions like Schadenfreude. Hang on, got a super chat here from Diane Freeman. State of Ohio closes its ballot entries prior to DNC. Legislature was told to change the law, but they were deadlocked. We might not have Joe Biden on the ballot here. JB anyway, I guess that's who we're talking about. That's something to think about. If somebody can chip in with this, I'll just keep the door open for another minute or two. There is a German expression, and it's a cool sounding words. I want to say they begin with B, or two words that begin with B. Anyway, the expression is the sensation you get when you look at the world with new clarity because you just got a new set of glasses. In other words, it refers to the sense of clarity you get when you. Oh, anybody know what that's called? Because somebody was talking about that today. They said that's what today is. Today's one of those days where you have the clarity that comes with suddenly getting a new prescription. And if you've ever had that experience, I've had it. It's a German expression, blitzen breiten or something like that. No, we're not going there. Anyway, I just kept trying to look for it. I gave it the right. It's a German word, or two words. No, it's not epiphany. It's not a word that I would know. It's not Schadenfreude. It's a new expression that I heard today for the first time. About nope. Well, I'll find it. We'll get to it later. We'll worry about it. Anyway, that'll do it for now. All right. So anyway, this show's made possible by the members at BillWhittle.com who are just awesome, fantastic people, and you probably already know that by now. The rest of you, I wouldn't piss on you if you were on fire. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. No, but seriously, hold on. There. Nope. We'll get it. I'll have it for you next time. Anyway, no, thank you very much for all of... Thanks very much for this. I'm going to have a wonderful time in Hawaii with Natasha and be gone for 4 days, and I'll come back and get the feeling I'll be much better when I get back. I just kind of need to reset. So I got a bunch of right angles to edit and post. I've been kind of slowing them down to fill up the gaps, so I got to take care of some of those. Okay, guys, thanks very much for joining us. Don't let them get you down. That's their objective, and they're not going to win. So, tell them. F them if they can't take a joke. That's the way I look at it. Laugh while you can, monkey boys. We got a verdict to deliver in November, as Donald Trump said today. So there you go. All right. Anyway, that'll do it for this edition of the Stratosphere Lounge, made possible by the members of BillWhittle.com. We will see you next Thursday. I think I'm coming back Wednesday night, so we'll see you next Thursday for Stratosphere Lounge. No Stratosphere Studio on Monday, so I guess we'll see you in a week, and we'll see what happens between now and then. But looking forward to spending a little time outdoors, and thanks again for all the fish. Okay, YouTube. You guys, thanks very much for joining us. It was great. Had a lot of people here tonight. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you here again next Thursday. All right, take care now. Bye-bye.